Morning. We're going to have a video on simple and compound interest, so I want to share with you some information and some good tidbits. The video is an advantage, so you can go back and play it again if you need that extra help. Here we go. So I'm going to read paragraph to you right here. Calculating simple interest. It says interest is money paid by banks and others for the use of depositories' money. Simple interest is earned using the formula I equals PRT, where I is the amount of interest, P is the principal, or the original amount deposited, R is the interest rate expressed as a decimal, and T is the time in years. Simple interest is paid at the end of the term based only on the principal at the beginning. So from this paragraph right here, what kind of notes should we be writing on our paper? Because you're going to be taking notes. So I think you should write the formula, I equals PRT. And I also think you should write down what the letter I stands for. And what does I stand for? Interest. And what did P stand for? Principal. And R, rate. And T, time. And what kind of time? Time was in, you're correct, years. But what if it's in months? You're correct, you would have to divide by 12. And what about rate? What if it's like 5.2? Do you just put 5.2? You're correct. You have to divide by 100 as well. And what about this I? Is that just interest? Maybe it's just called simple interest, and maybe I could remember with that strategy. So if you're solving for I, like this I, you're doing simple interest. There's no A in simple interest. That's simple. All right, so let's do a math problem. Somebody makes regular deposits in a savings account to save money for college. He deposits $1,000 at the start of each school year into an account that pays 4% simple interest at the end of each year. He does not deposit the interest. How much interest will he earn his first year? So what would I expect to see on your paper? So how are you going to solve that? So I'm going to go ahead and write the formula. I equals PRT. What did I stand for again? I was simple interest. And what was P? Principal. Or the beginning money. And R, that would be rate. But remember, divide by 100. And then T, well, that would be time. And time, remember, is in, you're correct, years. So what did they say? They said $1,000 at the beginning of school. And then 4% simple interest. And I think they said each year. And what number would that be? I think that's 1. So let's set that formula up. So you have I, P was 1,000. Your rate was 4%, and you're correct, 4 over 100. And your time would have been 1. So if you do 4 divided by 100, I believe you get 0.04 times 1 times 1,000 equals your interest only. And so I believe 4 pennies times 1 is probably still 4 pennies. And so you have 1,000 times 0.04. I believe you get 4,000. Then if you place your decimal in, $40. So if you have $1,000 and you leave in the bank for 1 year, 4% interest, you're going to make a whopping $40. You better find some more money. All right, on your paper, question 6 at the top, there's a question for you to do. So you're going to read that question, you're going to mark the keywords, you're going to write that formula down if you want a check mark on your paper, and you're going to start solving. Be mindful of keywords, be mindful of sneaky questions that are, send you in the wrong direction. All right, I'll be walking around the room checking your paper. I'd work quickly. All righty, I reread that question 6, and I think we should have a fixer-upper right there. How about Marlene has $50 in her account? That might make more sense for y'all. And so she has $50 in her account earning 3.5% simple interest. How much more interest would she earn in 10 years if her account was earning compound versus simple? Now, so far in my video, I've talked about simple interest. So this is a 2-part question. So we're going to do the first part, and then we'll catch the second part here in a minute. So what is your formula for simple interest? So that should be on your paper if I walk by. So I believe that's I equals PRT. And so what is that $50 in that account? So I'm going to write $50. Which label is that? Is that IPRT? You're correct. It's P. And then what about 3.5%? Obviously, that's rate. Remember, you'll divide that by 100. Don't forget. And then what about 10 years? I think that answers your question. If it's 10 years, I think that's called time. So these three pieces need to fit in that formula somewhere. And if you notice, one's better be missing. So I'm going to have I equals 50, parenthesis, my interest rate is 3.5%, divided by 100. And how long are you leaving it there? 10 years. All right, so let's do this math problem. How do y'all change 3.5% to a decimal? What does divide by 100 mean? That's correct. You're going to move that decimal two places. Which way? Left or right? Left. So if you take this decimal and go left twice, because there's two zeros here, twice, when you get 0.035, and then if I do 0.035 times 50, and then I'll multiply that by 10 here in a second. So real quick, let's do these first two pieces. Well, how would you multiply this number? Wouldn't you probably want to switch those around? I like my zero at the bottom. So that's going to be 0.035 times 50. 0 goes here. 5 times 5 is 25. 15, 16, 17. Decimals 3 places. So these two pieces make 1.750. Now you're going to multiply that by 10. And wouldn't you just add a 0? So 1750 plus another 0. And wouldn't the decimal be 3 places? 1, 2, 3. So wouldn't this answer be 1750? So if you do simple interest on this math problem, you'll make $17.50. Alrighty, we'll catch the compound here in a minute. Alrighty, let's look at compound interest. So let's read this. It says compound interest is interest paid not only to the principal but also on any interest that has already been earned. Every time interest is calculated, the interest is added to the principal for future interest calculations. The calculation can be made more than once a year, but in this lesson, only interest will be compounded annually. Annually means what? Once a year. It says the formula for compounding interest is A equals P parenthesis 1 plus R parenthesis exponent T. P is principal, same. R is interest rate, and it's a decimal. T is in time, it's still in years. And A is the amount earned in the account for compound interest. And there are no withdrawals. So we're going to do a math problem. Now let's talk about, before we do this math problem, what did you write in your notes real quick? Because, I was reading this to you and you were writing stuff down. So what did you record? I hope you wrote the word compound interest. I hope you took the time to write the formula. Probably need to record where these variables are. What was A? Compound interest. And what was P? Principal. And 1? Well, 1 stood for $1. And what was R? Rate. And then T, times in years. And how come it's way up there? I believe that's an exponent. How do you get an exponent? That'd be a carrot top. That's way up there. So remember, exponents, like scientific notation. All right, let's do the question. It says Lily makes regular deposits to a savings account to save money for retirement. She deposits $1,000 each year, and her account earns interest compounded annually at a rate of 4%. So let's learn how to do that. All right, so take your time and write your formula on your paper. And so then go back to your word problem. Wouldn't $1,000 be what? I think that's called principal. And you got 4%, and then you also have some years in here somewhere. How many years is she leaving it there for? It says each year. And I believe they want the first year. So I believe that's 1. So let's go back and fill these in. $1,000 goes for P. Parenthesis 1 plus, what's your interest rate? It said 4%. So remember, 4% is 0.04. And then that's the exponent to 1 year. Now what did A stand for? A stood for compound interest. So you're going to do 1 plus 4 pennies, and I believe that's $1.04, to the exponent of 1. And what is 1.04 times to the first power? I believe 1.04. And that is times 1,000 to get compound interest. And so what are the rules when you multiply with zeros? Don't you just take this number and add 3 zeros? And if you look, that's 2 places. So there's your decimal. Now, if you look at that formula, does this formula talk about all the money? Or is that some of the money? Is this the big formula or the little formula? This was the big formula. Because this is total. right? So this number here is your total amount. How much interest did they earn if they only wanted interest, though? So if you want interest only, how would you find that? Because 1,040 is your total. So how much did you put in the bank? 1,000? So what is 1,000 minus 1,040? I believe you found 40. So her total was $1,040. She earned $40 interest if she does compound interest at 4% for 1 year. Alrighty, you have an independent practice problem. So on your paper, question 7, I know. So an employee puts $5,000 in a retirement account that offers 9% interest compounded annually. The employer makes no additional deposits, withdrawals. Which amount is closest to the interest the employer will have earned in 5 years? You have that problem to complete. You also need to go back and complete this one. Because now, since you've done simple interest, you need to do compound interest. So now you need to redo this whole problem. But this time you've got $50, 3.5% compound interest, and 10 years. So you have both to complete. I'll walk around and check your papers. Work quickly. All right, so I've worked that math problem from question 6. Let me put that back on the screen for you. So question 6, it asks you to do simple, and then it asks you to do compound. Then it asks you to compare. So you can't compare until you have 2 answers. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I've got compound interest. 50 was my principal. $3.5 divided by 100, and we're to the 10th power. And so when you do 3.5 divided by 100, wouldn't that be the decimal twice? So would that be 0.035 plus $1? There's your 50, still to the exponent of 10. And then what would happen here? What happens to be done first? So if you typed in one step in the calculator, which one step would you type in? Would you multiply first, or would you do exponents first? Survey says PEMDAS. So you would put the exponent in first. You get that answer. Then that answer times 50. So let's recap PEMDAS. PEMDAS does parentheses. So you would have to do 1 plus 0.035 to get that solution right there. Then you have to do exponents to the 10th power. Then you would finally get to multiply and get your 50. And so let's see what that looks like. So here's my lovely calculator. And I was so kind, I typed it in for you. And how about I zoom in a lot? How about I get right there? There you go. So there's your 50. There is your 1.035. There's your 10. And what would you type in first to get that? You're correct. So I would take 1.035 to the 10th power to get that answer, because that's PEMDAS. And then that answer times 50 would give you your final solution. So you made $70. So your final answer is 70. What did you make on simple interest? 17. So this is your money. You get to pick. You making $17 or 70? I would hope you pick 70. And then the question is, what was the difference? So how do you find difference? Wouldn't that be subtract? So what's 70 minus 1750? So 70 minus 1750. Stop the video. Solve that answer. Hurry. Alrighty, back to the answer. How about 5250 difference? Perfect. All right, let's go to question 7. You were working on compound interest with $5,000. So what did you write on your paper? Let's look at it. Alrighty, so here's my formula. Correct. And then I plugged my numbers in. 5,000 was principal. 1 came with the formula. Where did I get 0.09? I believe that's 9%. And then to the 5th power. And so what would you type one step in your calculator? So what's the one step you would type in? Would you do multiplying first, or would you do exponents first? What does PEMDAS tell you? Let's go ahead and write PEMDAS out. Parentheses, I did that. Exponents, you're correct. So I need you to type in 1.09, and I hope you can add that in your head, to the exponent of 5. Alrighty, so I typed it in, and I got $1.53. So $1.09 to the 5th power is $1.53. And then what about the 5,000? So multiply that by 5,000. And how would I make that number look like money? If I round that to 2 places, it would look more appropriate. So That is our answer. Now remember, that's all your money. If you only want interest only, how would you figure that out? Well, when you take this number, subtract from 5,000, because wouldn't that be minus P up here? So then you're going to take the 7693.12, subtracting 5,000. So get that written on your paper. Hurry. Alrighty, did you get 2,693.12 cents? Perfect. So that's your interest earned. Remember, you gave the bank the 5,000. They wrote you a check for $76.93. You earned $26.93. You didn't earn 76. That was half. The 5,000 was yours to begin with. Alrighty, so you're going to do independent practice, and I'm going to be walking around the room checking those papers. Good luck.